John Rawls was an American political philosopher, who was one of the most influential thinkers of the 20th century in the field of political philosophy. Rawls is best known for his three major works. In the first book, A Theory of Justice, which published in 1971, Rawls proposes a theory of justice as fairness, and suggests equal fundamental liberties, equality of opportunity, and the promotion of the best interests of the most disadvantaged members of society, in any situation where inequality may occur. In fact, Rawls always looks at and measures any kind of inequality from the position of the least beneficiary. Redistribution is the desire to place all members of a society on an equal footing. Rawls states that his theory of justice as fairness cannot completely exclude the reliance on intuition, but he tries to limit intuition from several aspects, the most important of which is to propose a lexical sequence to face up to two principles. Rawls argues that the principles that each party will choose are two principles of justice in a lexical order. The first principle is the principle of equal liberty, and the second principle is a combination of the fairness of opportunity and the difference principle. Among them, the first principle states that all individuals should have equal basic liberties, such as freedom of speech and religion, while the second principle holds that social and economic inequalities should be arranged to benefit the least advantaged members of society, and the latter principle can only be considered when the former principle is fully satisfied. The essence of these two principles is to equally distribute various basic rights and obligations, and at the same time distribute the benefit and burdens generated by social cooperation as equally as possible. Rawls argues that a just society is one in which these two principles are reflected in its basic structure. Moreover, Rawls emphasizes the priority of liberty, and emphasizes that the right to liberty guaranteed by justice is never subject to political bargaining or the calculation of social interests. He argues that we need to assure ourselves that the principles governing our society are such that they can be defended even by those who do least well under them. Every member of society is considered to have inviolability founded on justice, or, as some say, on natural rights that even the welfare of all others cannot override. Justice as fairness denies that the loss of well-being for some is made right by a greater good shared by others. In such a just society, fundamental liberties are taken for granted. Rawls' argument for this theory of social justice employed a thought experiment known as the original position, in which people deliberately make choices about their society, and are asked to make decisions behind a veil of ignorance, without knowing what gender, race, ability, taste, wealth or social status they will have. This explains the propriety of the name, justice as fairness. It conveys the idea that the principle of justice is agreed to in an initial situation that is fair, to lead people to choose a fair policy. In the second book, Political Liberalism, which published in 1993, Rawls argues that a just society should be based on a political conception of justice, which is neutral with respect to comprehensive moral and religious doctrines. Rawls seeks to defend a liberal political system that can accommodate diversity and disagreement among citizens about questions of morality and religion. He proposes the idea of an overlapping consensus as a way of achieving political stability and avoiding the dangers of sectarianism and domination. In the third book, The Law of Peoples, which published in 2001, the most complete statement of Rawls' views on international justice, Rawls claims that well-ordered peoples could be either liberal or decent. Rawls's basic distinction in international politics is that his preferred emphasis on a society of peoples is separate from the more conventional and historical discussion of international politics, as based on relationships between states. He argues that the legitimacy of a liberal international order is contingent on tolerating decent peoples, which differ from liberal peoples, among other ways, in that they might have state religions, and deny adherents of minority faiths the right to hold positions of power within the state, and might organize political participation via consultation hierarchies, rather than elections. However, no well-ordered peoples may violate human rights, or behave in an externally aggressive manner. Peoples that fail to meet the criteria of liberal or decent Peoples are referred to as outlaw states, societies burdened by unfavorable conditions, or benevolent absolutisms, depending on the particular failings. Such peoples do not have the right to mutual respect and toleration possessed by liberal and decent peoples. All of these works have had a profound impact on political philosophy and have been widely discussed and debated by scholars and students alike. Despite the exacting, academic tone of Rawls's writing and his reclusive personality, his philosophical work has exerted an enormous impact on not only contemporary moral and political philosophy but also public political discourse. During the student protests at Tiananmen Square in 1989, copies of A Theory of Justice were brandished by protesters in the face of government officials. His opinions also stimulated critical responses from utilitarian, feminist, conservative, libertarian, Catholic, communitarian, Marxist and Green scholars. Rawls consistently held the view that naturally developed skills and endowments could not be neatly distinguished from inherited ones, and that neither could be used to justify moral desert. Instead, he held the view that individuals could legitimately expect entitlements to the earning of income, or development of abilities based on institutional arrangements. This aspect of Rawls's work has been instrumental in the development of such ideas as luck egalitarianism and unconditional basic income, which have themselves been criticized. The strictly egalitarian quality of Rawls's second principle of justice has called into question the type of equality that fair societies ought to embody. In a 2008 national survey of political theorists, based on 1,086 responses from professors at accredited, four-year colleges and universities in the United States, Rawls was voted first on the list of scholars who have had the greatest impact on political theory in the past 20 years. He received both the Schock Prize for Logic and Philosophy, and the National Humanities Medal in 1999, the latter presented by President Bill Clinton, in recognition of how Rawls's work revived the disciplines of political and ethical philosophy, with his argument that a society in which the most fortunate help the least fortunate is not only a moral society but a logical one. Rawls died on November 24, 2002, at age 81, and was buried at the Mount Auburn Cemetery in Massachusetts.